Welcome to the September. I had to be reminded that it was September. That's the stage we're at right now. September 14th edition of the PFF Forecast. This is why I have Eric here to help me out. I'm George. I'm joined by Eric. We are going to talk about week two. We're going to pick our lock of the week. Finally, the season is upon us. Week one lock of the week was the biggest lock of all locks. Patrick Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns. Can we beat that? We will have to find out. Let's rock. We should start the podcast here just by saying that there is some news, and there are many members of the printing press that are notably curious, concerned, interested, wondering if you and I, will we persist? What is going to happen? How will we print for all members of the press? And just to say, things are still being figured out, but we care about our listeners. We care about the printing press, and all of you should know that that is going to be something we're going to make sure is able to continue in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, at least for the next few episodes, it'll be the two of us. But and look, I couldn't go out on a Patrick Mahomes over that basically hit in the first quarter. I'll at least have to lose one here before I take off to different pastures. But yeah, it's fun to chat. We haven't. It's been an interesting few days. Exciting few days. But I'm excited to talk week two. We don't have as many edges in college football, so I have to look to the trusty NFL to get us to the finish line. Just a recap. So college green line was up against close about 7.5 units. NFL was down 2 units. So if you have been betting with NCAA and NFL green line, I believe you're up like 8 or 9 units on the year against closing line, which is pretty freaking good. So let's see if we can get this thing to continue.
Yeah, and we I felt did a nice job of identifying, not to pat myself on the back or you on the back or us on the back, but if you're betting kind of blindly with the model, there are some things that sometimes you hold your nose. Here goes the cold water kind of situation. Like we had the Jets, like our model had the Jets. That was not something that, I don't know if you bet personally. I did not bet personally. So we talk about strictly what the model does. Part of the benefit of this podcast is that we kind of like sit there and go like, which are our favorites, of the group, and hopefully that adds value. That's why there's esteemed members of the press here with us. And I am confident that we'll figure some out. I want to say this. Tomorrow night, Chargers Chiefs. What is the chance that we're about to watch the best game of the season tomorrow, or if you're listening to this, potentially today?
It's a good chance. So far this year, there aren't that many to pick from, right? I mean, we had a good game. No. I'm trying to think, like all 3 primetime games were bad. Mm-hmm. I guess you could say Seattle, Denver was compelling, but not good. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati was compelling, not good. Houston versus Indianapolis was compelling, but not good. Other barn burners, I get, and again, like when the Giants beat the Titans, that was a close game. It wasn't a good game. Mm-hmm. I think we're in that role. So chances are good. If it's basically the chance that it's a good game is the chance that it's a good game for this season so far. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking. I understand what you're coming at. I'm saying like the chances that looking back on this season, the best game that we will have seen is Chargers Chiefs. Now that's a bold claim because it's week 2, a lot of games left to go, but both teams are relatively healthy. I guess the Chargers don't have Keenan Allen here, so that's definitely a blow. But I mean, certainly the best game, most anticipated game, I would say, of the games this season. But it has a sneaky feeling to me. Remember that Chiefs Rams game from a few years back that was like a
Yeah.
Monday night game,
Yep. It was
and
crazy.
it was just insane. Like maybe it's not this Chargers Chiefs game, but if you had to pick a matchup to deliver that kind of thrill, like it's gonna be Chargers Chiefs. And with Al Michaels making his first Amazon call, like maybe it happens. Spread right now, Kansas City -4. Obviously, when we talked about it on Sunday night, where we guessed the lines, and I encourage you, if you're new listening to this podcast, join us on Sunday live after the games happen. We guess all the lines, has now moved to Kansas City -4. Um, do you have a feeling on the spread or money line or the under of 54?
Yeah, apparently there's some trend out there that Thursday night football unders when the total is over such and such are undefeated. Um, that seems really stupid. A stupid reason to bet under here. Although our model does like under, I think that's a good reason. Last year when they faced in Kansas City in Week 3, Chiefs were 6-point favorites. That game landed on 54. It was 54.5 on close. The other game between them was on Thursday night, and that looked under the whole game. And then Patrick Mahomes came from behind. I think if it's a game that if the Chiefs control the game like they did against Arizona, it'll go under. I think if the Chargers get a lead, the game's going over because Pat's, Pat and I might win the game, but Pat's gonna, fire. And we've really only seen maybe 1 or 2 games in his career where they trailed and he didn't at least mount some sort of comeback to make the game go over. The Super Bowl being won last year, Tennessee, where they lost, was it 27-3 or 34-3, was another one. So that's, I think, the handicap. Now, this number opened 3 in May. It got up to 3.5 a couple weeks ago. I took the Chargers at 3.5 a couple weeks ago to show the printing press pragmatism, frankly. But I found myself today laying like -200 with the Chiefs. I just like to kind of basically buy off of this because I think that the injuries for the Chargers are debilitating. And I know that the Chiefs injuries aren't great, but I think on balance, it hurts the Chargers a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, Keenan Allen being out, I think, is a reason that you could think about the under. There's no doubt about it. I'm not here to bet -4 on the Chiefs. I actually think if you're betting the spread, like the only sharp play is to bet Chargers +4, like getting across 3. I mean, that is going to be, I think, what you would expect to be a competitive game. But honestly, I'm looking to the prop market here, and we have to talk about Patrick Mahomes and the fact that, look, we're going to have to, over 2.5 passing touchdowns has to be beaten. Like we have to come up with a lock of the week that is better than that.
I think what we should do as a standing lock of the week is Mahomes over 2.5 until it gets to like -120, and then we'll turn it off. Mahomes is a standing lock of the week, right?
Okay.
So let's just have that, throw that out there, but that's too easy. The printing press, folks, they deserve 2 locks of the week. If we're gonna have one, just gimme like Mahomes.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. So there's a couple other props that I like. One of them is Austin Eckler under 4.5 receptions. One of the reasons that I like Austin Eckler under 4.5 receptions, in addition to the model liking it, is we saw them rotate a lot of backs in week 1. I think there is a desire to keep him fresh. There's no doubt about it. Now, without Keenan Allen, they look to him more potentially, but they're also an underdog. And so I could see them wanting to use Eckler as a runner, but potentially sparing him a little bit with, in the passing game. So that's, I mean, generally you think of Austin Eckler as a receiving threat, but that's one that our model likes. And then the other one that I'll throw out to you, Eric, and I know you've studied this, so I'm curious how much you like this one, which is Mahomes under half an interception. He had just one bad throw in week 1, but overall was pretty spot on.
Gave it a -10. That's how the math works out.
That's how it worked out. We're not talking about that here. We're on to week 2. Go listen to Sam and Steve's podcast to hear the grading nooks and crannies, the NFL podcast, or tune into It's Just Football. We're here to bet on the future. Are there any other props that that you like in this game? Because obviously, if people are listening to this on Thursday, looking to get some skin down
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Thursday
They're
night.
they're looking to yeah, and the props Sunday are kind of limited. Yeah, you know, when I look at, McCole Hardman, for example, under 3.5 receptions at -113, to me, that's one where um I think that the Chiefs want to move on from Hardman. They got great effort from Juju, except for the fumble. MVS caught all 4 of his targets, and Sky Moore caught one for 30. Hardman continues to kind of like lay up on balls that are kind of catchable, that kind of thing. So I'll take Hardman under 3.5 catches. I think my sicko play of the night is going to be
Mm.
Herbert under 1.5 pass touchdowns at +160. Just like the Geno Smith no interception prop, like that one, you pray it away. But that's one that I like as well. I think that your play on Eckler is correct, but I do think that that's going to mean that they're going to want to put, going to want to run the football near the goal line, right? And that coupled with the fact that the Chiefs were actually pretty damn good defensively on Sunday, and I think it's going to be a situation where Herbert's going to have fewer touchdowns than we imagine.
Yeah, that's definitely a sicko play of the week. I mean, you're going to anger like 95% of the football community, but that's sometimes what you have to do. Like if you're going to be a real member of the press, I feel like you've got to do that every once in a while. By the way, if you are looking to get more of this good stuff on player props and game lines as well, go to pff.com, or I encourage you to do this. Download the PFF app, which we now have. Go search PFF on the Apple App Store. If you're in the US, and you will get coming soon all of the props. But right now, all props associated with any mismatch that we have, you can go find all of the mismatches for each of the games that we have. Those are model driven and then curated with expert analysis. So you get the very best of PFF, plus, of course, all our fantasy tools. Includes the wide receiver cornerback mismatch chart, which you can find at on pff.com, and our rankings and start sit tool, which you can find on the PFF app. So go get that immediately. Also, if you are going to be placing some bets and you haven't taken advantage of the DraftKings offer yet, you should use promo code PFF when you sign up. Bet $5 and get $200 in free bets instantaneously, and then you can place all of those free bets on all the player props that we just talked about and profit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on any football game, anyone. Code PFF, only DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See the description for details. We don't no longer have to read that garbage. Let's move on to the Sunday slate. We're going to try and identify a non-Patrick Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdown lock of the week. I will let you, sir, begin. Where would you like to go?
Okay. We liked this the other day. I do think the Arizona Cardinals getting 5.5 in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
To me, you look at those two teams, like that number was right around 2.5, 3 before the season. The question becomes like, what happened last week? I know Arizona got blown out and Las Vegas just lost a close game, but like what last week made this move 2 points towards Las Vegas? It's not. I don't get it. That's kind of my point. I don't get it. I know Arizona's on the road, but they're playing pretty close to where they live. And it's not like Derek Carr is some great quarter. Like I think the quarterback play is equal, if not maybe a little shaded towards Arizona. I don't know. And is Josh McDaniels a good coach?
It's interesting because I think the narrative here is less to do with the Raiders, certainly, and all to do with the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals looked really, really bad at home. I mean, their performance at home is what you'd expect them like on the road in the playoffs to do. They could not cover anybody. They could not move the ball at all against Kansas City, and that was at home. Now, I like where you're at here because you're picking, a team that people are overreacting to from week one against a really good opponent. Now, the interesting thing here is obviously for the Raiders, this game matters maybe more so than the Cardinals, because if you go 0-2 in the AFC, you can kiss this shit goodbye, right? But 6 points, like winning by 6 points when you have the Raiders defense, I think is a little generous. They have maybe not as bad of a defensive backfield as the Arizona Cardinals do, but it's damn close. I mean, it is damn close. And yes, they have good pass rushers in Mason Crosby and in Chandler Jones, but they're just not going to cover anyone particularly well. And Kyler Murray obviously has some elusiveness. And they were embarrassed. The Raiders lost. Were they embarrassed? I wouldn't say so. So I like that quite a bit. I don't think that, the Cardinals, you look at their defense, it's like they don't have a single player that's graded over 65 aside from Dexter Lawrence on the interior. So, Rashard Lawrence on the interior. I'm losing my mind here. That's not good. So you're picking a really stinky one. Let me take you to a different place.
By the way, this one, if you get first half, it's +3 -105, which I actually think is probably a better bet than full game +5.5.
I kind of tend to agree with you. Okay, I'd like to go here, which is okay. This is going to be a challenge, but bear with me here. The Chicago Bears are going to Green Bay to play the Green Bay Packers. The total is 42.5. It is supposed to be, I guess, 71 chance of light rain. It's on Sunday night. I think everyone here is assuming that the Aaron Rodgers led offense is going to be stifled in by its own lack of ability. And I want to bet against that in every way that I can.
Sorry, the clacking you're hearing is me making this actual bet while it's happening, while you're talking. So I actually am seeing a 42 on my offshore. So we'll go with that. I
mean,
there we go.
So here's,
I'll put it in bet stamp prop. Don't worry.
Here's something to think about with this bet. You may think to yourself, oh man, Aaron Rodgers in the passing game looked awful. Let me remind you that Christian Watson cooked Patrick Peterson like a Thanksgiving turkey.
That was a cookage.
Yeah, and dropped the ball. What do we know? Drops are unstable. Here's the other thing to think about. The Chicago Bears defense stinks. They held the 49ers not by virtue of their defense being amazing, but by virtue of the fact that they were playing in a slip and slide and facing Justin Fields, or facing Trey Lance. I get Freudian slip there. So I like this quite a bit. And with a spread of 10 and a team like the Bears who are going to obviously fight, and Justin Fields, who's kind of always going to, I think this year, be a guy that scores you a couple touchdowns late with his legs or just by airing it out. So I'm going to offer over 42.5. Packers, Bears. Where would you like to go?
Like that? Okay. This one's been bet down. I'm not, I like that. I've been on a few shows and I've kind of said, hey, why don't you think about Seattle? Let's get away. I don't want to cause a division between us. So I'm going to go to the New York Football Giants laying 2. Like I said, you and I have been friends since I said this on the air twice today. You and I have been friends since 2017. This is the first time in our friendship that the Giants possessed a winning record. This is the first time in this great show, a show many lauded yesterday as one of the best in the history of the world. I'm just saying.
There's no real debate there.
No. This is the first time. And I think the Giants look, the Panthers suck, man. They have a decent defense, but they also were had by Jacoby Brissett last week. Pass rush isn't nearly as good as I thought, although I got to look at the stats. When I was watching the game, it certainly didn't pop out at me the way that I thought it would. And you look at the Giants, the Giants have, they were using Saquon well. The wide receivers are meh, but I think at the line of scrimmage, they're better than Panthers, especially, frankly, on both sides. So I'll lay the 2 with the Giants. Although again, that's a good teaser leg because again, if either one of these two teams wins the game by more than a score, you charge it to the game. I think, right? But I'll take the Giants -2.
Okay. Okay. I can get on board with that with the one exception that the Giants everyone is telling them that they're 1-0 for the first time, and they're 1-0 for the first time for a reason. Daniel Jones threw one of the worst end zone passes I've seen in my lauded history of watching football. And the Panthers, did make a spunky recovery against the Browns, even though they ultimately lost. So while I really do like the teaser leg, and would be looking for some other teaser legs, and one that I might point out, there's a couple that I like. The one that I think sticks out the most to me, though, is the New Orleans Saints +8.5 at home against Tom Brady and the Bucs.
Total on that game is really low for a Tampa Bay game, 44.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
It's because, the people, like, we all gravitate to these things, right? Like the first game between Bucs Saints last year went well over the total, but then the second one went 9-0, right? They were the 38-3 game, and then the week one of the previous season, it was like 34-23 or something like that, maybe a little lower than that. But like, we remember the games where the Saints shut down the Bucs. We also remember, and again, this is a very interesting thing, like Tom Brady this week threw, basically just a fraction of the passes he would throw in a game last year, only 212 yards. Like, they leaned into the Leonard Fournette stuff, and frankly, like, Leonard Fournette, look, if anybody has shown the relative instability of like what weight, right? Leonard Fournette comes into camp like 310 pounds was the report, right? And loses all that weight, and he looked freaking spry on Monday. But to all that point, like, I don't know if over is going to be the play. And so, if that's the case, it's harder for the road team, the Bucs, to win by more than 2.5. I don't know. It's very interesting, right?
Yeah, it is. And certainly I think this has to do with the history of the Saints and the Bucs, which is well known. And obviously the Bucs won the playoff game, but in the regular season, it has not been solid. I also think this is a little bit about just Tampa Bay and their offense. I mean, Michael Thomas looked really good. Chris Olave looked fine. Jameis Winston looked fine. So, like, I don't know. I think they can keep this close kind of regardless. Is that too ridiculous to say? But I think, the Saints had to come back against the Falcons, and everyone comes back against the Falcons. But they played well. I mean, Jameis Winston had about an 80 PFF grade, made some really nice throws. They clearly have offensive players on the receiving core that can make some moves here. So I don't know. I think it's worth thinking about. I also would say that over is worth thinking about as well. Let me go to another over that I tend to like as well. And this is on Monday night. And this is Titans Bills. So we talked about this from a spread perspective. We liked Buffalo 9.5. This is actually moved towards Buffalo here. And it was all the way out to 10.5. It's now at 10. So just, helping you feed your family with a little bit of closing line value. But I actually look at the over, and there's a couple things that I like about this. It's moving, downward. It opened at 49.5. It's now down to 48. And I really don't believe that the Bills are going to take their foot off the gas against anybody. To me, that's just not something that they're doing this season. And, if you look at what the Bills have from an offensive perspective, that means they can put up 50 on anybody. This is their home opener. And here's the thing for the Titans. They blew a 13-point lead. So they are going to come out and be hot and be trying to keep this competitive. They beat the Bills last year in a game where the Bills were heavily favored. So I definitely like the over here between Ryan Tannehill and Josh Allen.
Yeah, this is that's a good one. I mean, it's got to be crazy. This has got to be the first time without a quarterback injury that like a 1 seed from the previous year was a 10-point underdog the next week. the next season, week 2, right? Like,
Yeah.
absurd, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is surprising. I think it says a lot about. Remember, we mentioned this last year about how the Titans were a good bet to get the 1 seed about halfway through the season, and a big reason for that was their strength of schedule was the easiest or second easiest strength of schedule in the entire NFL, and that helped propel them to that point. And it's interesting. They're similar, in my opinion, to the Cowboys, and that they've lost, good players, and you're just not going to be a better team with the loss of good players. But I don't know. It's interesting because I think this was similar to the handicap that we had Titans Bills last year, where it was like, hey, the Bills are just a better team. But the Titans matched up with them well. They obviously have Jeffrey Simmons down there in the middle, who's a complete game wrecker. Ryan Tannehill did great well week 1. So that's why I lean over now 48 as opposed to betting the spread here on Monday night, which is now up to 210.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah, I'm a little worried, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We keep going. What do you want to go to next?
All right, last one for me, because it is a bad slate, and like I do want to discuss this. I gave this one out on TikTok today. PFF.
Oh, look at you.
Part of it at least. We talked about Minnesota +3 when we were talking on Sunday night. I said I see it at -110 on a PPH, and I see it at -120 something on Pinnacle. Bet Vikings +3. You're not going to get it for that long. And it got all the way to Philadelphia -1.5. I have come back then and taken some Philly money line. So that's kind of the position I have. I do think that if I were to bet this game more, I would take Philadelphia -2 against Minnesota, even though Minnesota +3 was good, right? Like, so that's what I'm seeing this week. I also think 50.5 is a little too high. I think it's overreacting to the Eagles Detroit game. Which was, kind of, it was a high scoring game, but Jared Goff's a house. So I like Eagles and under in the second Monday night game Monday.
The under I like because it's so unintuitive, right? You go, what were the big storylines of week 1? And the big storylines of week 1 were the Eagles scored 38 points, and to your point, looked like, world beaters because they beat the offseason Super Bowl champion Detroit Lions.
The vaunted.
Yeah. But the second biggest story was like the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson was wide open. I almost said Jared because of Jared Goff. Justin Jefferson didn't have a defensive player within like 10 yards of him at the catch point on any play. Now, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, both good. I don't think that that's going to happen in this game. Okay. I think they're going to make Adam Thielen and Herb Smith beat them. And, that to me is the right way to play it. That plays to the under. But you look at the other side of the ball. What happened with the Eagles? The Eagles nuked the Detroit Lions with A.J. Brown. So, teams are smart. They're going to look at those things. I think as a result, both teams ultimately want to run the football. So I like where your head is at there with the under. I'll go one more. Okay. And the reason I will go one more is that I do want to talk about the San Francisco 49ers being an 8.5-point favorite to the Seattle Seahawks.
And you're making the case to bet it even further down.
I mean, look, I get that it was sloppy in Chicago. I get that. There were some nice plays that Trey Lance made. And I totally understand the fact that the Niners were embarrassed in a game that they were a big favorite, and the Seahawks are coming off of a Monday night on short rest emotional win. So those things, the spot here is amazing for San Francisco. I'm not doubting that. All of those things said, doesn't it feel a little rich to make Trey Lance an 8.5-point favorite now? I mean, don't you have to see it from him first?
Yeah, you do. The Niners have scored 10 or fewer points in just 2 of their last 45 games as a franchise. Both were started by Trey Lance, who has 3 career starts. It's rough. I want to think that the Niners are going to be able to do it, but there's no evidence to suggest that Shanahan can make Trey Lance successful. Now, Seattle ran a great game plan in the first half, and I fear that those are all the good plays they have. Because the second half, no touchdowns, no field goals. Did they cross the 50 in the second half, George? The Seahawks?
It wasn't pretty in the second half. Let's put it that way.
And the defense gave up a shit ton of yards and was extremely soft, kind of at the line of scrimmage, where that's the one place where the Niners have a prayer of winning at an elite level right now. Now they don't have Kittle, probably, so that hurts. So that's where I get worried, right? Is teams like San Francisco, when they get ahead, they can really push leads because they can run the football really well. And the Seattle Seahawks, I think, are a gashable defense. They give up a shit ton to Denver. And Denver didn't have a clue in that game about anything. Denver, if they won that game, it'd be by accident, right?
Yeah, and literally, because they fumbled everywhere.
Yeah, and they laid up for a field goal down 4. They laid up for a field goal down 1 from freaking Vancouver. And I like, so anyway, I don't think the Seahawks are any good, and I think they ran out of the Geno Smith plays last week. It's kind of where I'm at.
So can I interest you?
Can I propose something?
Please.
I want to tease the Niners from 8.5 to 2.5. I want to tease the Saints, which I got from you, from 2.5 to 8.5. And I want to consider that as a lock.
Okay. I like where your head is at, and honestly, it's been too long since we
teased. I have this PPH that gives me 110 teasers. Before the numbers changed, I put a massive amount on a Carolina plus 8.5, Washington plus 8.5 teaser.
Oh wow!
Because I was saying, look, if Detroit or New York Giants win a game by 2 scores or more, you charge it to the game. You know, that's not your fault.
I like that phrase that you've come up with. By the way, a game that we chatted about on Sunday night, Jaguars +4 at home. Not one that our model likes, but one that I will certainly be thinking about and considering. Both of us are playing in the Circa Millions contest, and you've got to pick 5 games there, and obviously their spreads are they come out at a certain time every week. I think they should be out now, right? So you kind of have to make those decisions based on those spreads. That'll be one that I'll be thinking about. Overall, this is in my opinion, a very challenging week from like a Circa contest or any time you have to pick a certain number of games against a spread where you can't just pick 1 or 2 that you like, and you can't pick any unders or overs either.
Right.
Like some stinky ones, man. Like that's why I think I'll end up looking at Jags +4. Maybe something like maybe even something
Dolphins
like Philly
+3.5, man.
Yeah.
It's the one where, like, you look at the Ravens, and again, we're just musing here, right? A contest. The other thing about contests is, the game theory is not trivial. Do you go with the game that has a lot of closing line value? So if you do, would you have taken Philly -4 yesterday or last week? That kind of thing. But like in contests, you don't necessarily just bet your edges, especially for people like me and George, where your model is literally being, shown to the world. Miami against a Baltimore team that's lost 2 left tackles already, who's lost, some, key pieces so far. That's not a bad one, I would say, if you're in that contest. So
it's a really good point. I think from my perspective, and I'm curious how you think about this. Early in the season, is there value in thinking through what your opponents might be doing? And, I'll give you an example of where I did do that last week. I was pretty confident that I try and guess who the consensus picks are going to be. I was pretty confident in both Ravens and Eagles. So, I steered against both the Ravens and the Jets. Honestly, our model like the Jets. I was just like, you know what? I don't want to fight that battle, right? I don't need to be right against the consensus right now. I'm not in the dying weeks of the season. But I also am not going to go against my model, for that reason.
Yeah.
And then on the Eagles Lions one, is another one where I was like, I'm just going to stay away here. I think ultimately I like the Lions. I pick 'em contests I do, and I did take the Lions because I was forced to pick one side of them. But are you actively thinking about who might be a popular choice in those contests? And then how does that, if so, influence what you end up taking?
We do. I mean, we do think of them. I know that there was the one game, right, where where the Vikings were favored by 7 against Green Bay, coming off of that Rodgers knee injury in 18, right? And then the game closes -1, and it's like everybody knows the game is going to close -1. Do you take -7 in case the variance happens? You pick up a game on everybody. Like those are situations where I think it's interesting, right? Where same thing with the Survivor competition. You have to take a team with future value, meaning you have to take a team that you might not use later, but also not everybody else is going to use at the same time as you, right? So it's that kind of thing where you think about where the market is. So, for example, like you have to determine like where are these games going to go, and usually it's a pretty big random walk. But I can tell you, there's a big group that bets the Philadelphia near close every single week, and that's why when you saw, for example, the divisional round last year in the the wild card round, the Bucks went from +9.5 to +7 on game day, right? That team bet them all the way to a key number. Last week, Detroit, that game opened 4, got to 3.5 at times, closed at like 6, right? There are people who love the Eagles, bet the Eagles, and they're a different group than the one that bet the Vikings earlier this week. So, or groups. So that's something to know. So if the contests give you Philly -2 or better, if you think it's going to close 3, right? Take it. But you got to know that everybody else is thinking the same thing you are, right? So if you like the Vikings, it might be worthwhile to take them on a bad number because you know that the rest of so it's a bunch of different like game theory type things where you have to guess where the line movement is going to go, which is basically just picking the right side of the game. And then, what do you think other people are going to think and so on. And that's where, frankly, some of the sports betting content in this space is actually valuable because I think like a lot of these shows talk about the same game all week, and it's like, well, why hasn't the number moved?
Well, their syndicates haven't bet yet. That's the thing. Once their syndicate starts trading rookie cards for picks, that's when the lines really start to move.
I call it turning picks, but yeah.
I like that. By the way, I heard through the grapevine this week that it was really an incredible week for our friend Simon Hunter. Just a banner week. And
oh, really? Like good or bad? Like banner
good. And the reason that I know that is because no one lost more this offseason. And one thing that we know about Simon Hunter is he does not lose 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, I see. So
I'm just using reasoning.
The 2-week rolling average for Simon Hunter is always positive, and so you knew that this week by definition had to be very positive.
It's like the zigzag theory of gambling.
Love.
Yeah. By the way, that means that I'm due for positive regression on my video feed the next time that we talk. I'm here in a hotel room in New York City. By the way, I'm going to get to see our friend, member of the printing press, Brad Spielberger, tomorrow. And maybe we'll watch Chargers Chiefs together. What is your plan for Chargers Chiefs? Because I mean, look, there are a few people in this world that love football as much as you do, and there's no one in this world that loves the Chiefs more than you do. So like, may God help whoever you are partaking in this game with.
So last time I watched the Chiefs Chargers was Thursday night. I watched it at my house and they won. And they've lost the other times I've watched against the Chargers at the office. So I am staying home tomorrow.
Smart.
I might invite some people over.
Oh.
But I'm staying. But people generally don't come out to Lebanon. It's a ways away from downtown.
Yeah, you got to go through the Mediterranean. It's deal with terrorists. It's kind of tough.
Right. So anyway, so I'll be watching it by myself. I will assuredly, when MVS gets behind Derwin James 15-10-5 touchdown,
Mhm.
and I yell, my wife is certainly not going to get angry at me the way she did last year.
No, of course not. Steph's an absolute saint.
Thing.
Um, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to go make a bet on the game tomorrow on Chargers Chiefs. I'm going to go to Brothrow because
Nice.
I've been using our friends at Brothrow. So Brothrow is a peer-to-peer wagering platform. It's not even betting, it's just a community thing. I did it last week and I was skeptical because I was like, the way they do it is you connect your Venmo or your Cash App or whatever. And I'm like, these people gonna pay me? But like they did. And I won some money. So I'm gonna keep doing it this week. I was only allowed to bet a certain amount. They have you like limited until you've made a certain number of bets. I was able through sources to get my limit removed. So now
Love.
all holds are off at this point. The only thing that I will say, and it's very easy to use, you can bet over, under, spread, and money line. And if you don't see a bet that you like, you can actually like put a bet out there and see if someone will take it. No player props yet. So I have to take, a spread, total, or money line. I think, don't get mad at me, but I think I'm leaning towards taking Chargers +4 because I kind of have to bet on this game in some way, shape, or
Right.
form.
Under's a
And
good bet.
you like that? Okay. By
But
the
I
way, if
mean, you can bet San Diego if you want to. Okay.
that's fair.
I call
Um,
I call teams by the cities they were in when they last won a division title.
Yeah, or just by the coolest cities that they've ever been a part of. Both are totally fair. But if you want to bet on Brothrow, like if you're in a state that doesn't have betting, this is like super easy to use. Also, under 54 has my attention. But go to brothrow.com/PFF because you can't sign up unless you have an invite code. And that is our invite code. If you do that, you will be able to sign up. Like I said, it's easy. I've used it and it's legal everywhere and there's no vig. So, you bet $10, you win $10. Brothrow.com/PFF. Also, before we pick our lock of the week, Symbol, SIMBULL. Download the mobile app on iOS. You search it by searching Symbol. And what it is it's a sports betting meets stock market combination. So you buy stock in the teams that you like, and you get money, i.e., a dividend, when they win games, and you can trade those shares of teams and buy other ones when you see opportunity. So go use promo code Forecast and create your free account, and then get a free stock valued at $150 with the promo code Forecast. So very good opportunity for you. Probably a little easier than going to the stock market right now, although always buy the dip. Remember that. Lock of the week. Where do you feel we best complement Patrick Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns?
Okay. Like I said, my favorite is San Fran -2.5, teased with New Orleans +8.5.
I like that. I will say that the first one that you mentioned, Arizona getting 5.5
Yeah, that
against
one's a good one.
our Vegas Raiders, also really resonates with me.
Should we
Really
just run it
resonates
up
with
and
me.
have two in addition to Pat?
I mean, why not? You only live once.
No, that's right.
You only live once. All right, there it is. Bucks, Saints +8.5 at home against the Bucks, teased with our San Francisco Fighting Trey Area Lance 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals and the Fighting Kyler Murrays +5.5 on the road against Derek Carr's 5 turnover worthy play, Las Vegas Raiders revenge game for Chandler Jones here, by the way. Those feel good. By the way, go to pff.com
Lots of
slash.
injuries for the Bucks this week. Lots of injuries for the Bucks.
Yeah, that's right. They are banged up in addition to Julio Jones just being eternally banged up. Um, Mike Evans questionable with a leg. Tristan Wirfs torso is questionable. Godwin obviously hurt himself. Leonard Fournette also questionable. And by the way, you can see all those injuries and their grades of those players on pff.com/greenline. I believe is what the URL is. But anyways, go to pff.com, find the green line tool, and you can see all those. that was our show. Efficient, well run, great offense, kind of like the Chiefs, probably the eighth best quarterback by the eighth best podcast hosting duo in football, would you say?
Look, I was you know, I was thinking in powers of two though, so he's third.
Okay.
Third.
Yeah, that's fair. 2 to the power of 3.
Yeah,
By the way, I was
on the log 2 scale.
What's funny that you bring that up, because I was reading, I don't get a chance to consume a lot of, other good content out there. And someone shared with me, actually, Ben Brown, our friend, shared with me some content that he was consuming called In Predict by a guy named @InPredict, Mike Bowie, I believe is his name. And he wrote something on the tension. It was called the tension index. And tension index is basically like how tense is this game? And it's the way that he measures it is using something called information theory, which looks at the information that is conveyed in a message, which is inversely proportional to the chances of that message being wrong. The message being wrong. So like if something is not gonna, if you get a message and like the chance is that it's wrong, then like the tension is high, because like, man, like what's gonna happen? And that's kind of true about a game, right? If you say like, oh, this team is gonna win, but the chances are really 50-50, there's a lot of, information that you're not getting from that message. And the way that you model that is with log base 2. And so I was refreshing my memory I was in a plane reading it, like sketching out, negative log base 2 of X or whatever. I must have looked like a complete moron.
Yeah, the entropy equations are great. We've used Arjun has used them a little bit in terms of like predictability of coverage, but it's absolutely the one thing that not to give away, but like the one thing I had always thought was, there was different you could measure a play by the amount of information it gives you. So if you're an offensive lineman, like a bubble screen to the wide receiver is like no information about how good that player is, versus like a 3rd and 10 type of thing. That would be also kind of sweet, I think. But obviously, that it might take a little bit of time to flesh out.
Wouldn't that be sweet? Name that movie. Hopefully the printing press is familiar that is from Wedding Crashers. I mean, the only thing that's spent more airtime on this podcast than you and I has been the dulcet tones of Wedding Crashers quotes, which permeate these airwaves. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope that you come back and join us on Sunday night. By the way, encourage you to share this podcast, get your friends listening to it. I think it's fun to guess the game lines with friends, to pick games with friends. Obviously, that's why you and I do this. And you should do it with your friends too, and get them listening to the podcast and guessing the lines as well. Give us a little 5-star review on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, and go download the PFF app so you can follow along with us throughout the week. Give that a little 5-star review. I'm checking the reviews. If there are any good takes from members of the printing press, they will be read on Sunday night. So go make some good, funny reviews, some takes, and we will shout you out on this podcast on Sunday night. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Love you all. Peace.